Hello guys, this is Cardmates, and today let's talk about Pocket Kings. Playing the Cowboys is relatively easy most of the time, but every once in a while a dreaded ace rolls off the flop and it changes the whole situation. In this video, we will help you increase your win rate with Pocket Kings by covering how to play the kings in common pre-flop scenarios, playing Pocket Kings when you have an overpair, and how to play Pocket Kings on ace-high flops. Let's get started. How to play Pocket Kings in common pre-flop scenarios. Unopened pots. King is obviously the second strongest starting hand in the deck behind pocket aces. For this reason, you'll always want to raise with this hand pre-flop from every position when the action folds to you. Avoid limping with Pocket Kings as it will lead to smaller pots being won by you on average over time. Against a raise. When faced with a raise, you should 3-bet with Pocket Kings every single time. You probably already knew that, but do you know what 3-bet size to use? When you're in position versus the raiser, you should 3-bet to around 3 to 3.5 times the initial raise size. So if your opponent raised to $6 in a $1, $2 game, you'd 3-bet to around $20. When you're out of position versus the raiser, 3-bet to at least 3.5 times the initial raise size. If stacks are deep, 200 big blind plus, you can go as big as 5 times from the big blind. You should never just call a raise with this hand because, first of all, you're incentivized to build a bigger pot as soon as possible. Additionally, Pocket Kings actually can benefit from equity denial because the weaker ace hands in your opponent's range, like ace 10 or ace 6s, will fold, taking away their chance to steal the lead from you on an ace-high flop. Against a 3-bet. When facing a 3-bet with King, you should almost always continue to build the pot with a 4-bet. After all, your kings dominate all but one of your opponent's possible hands. Note: the one cash game situation which you may not want to 4-bet kings is when you are extremely deep stacked against a very tight player. Keep in mind that such situations are very rare. Size-wise, you want to be 4-betting to around 2.2 to 2.3 times the size of the 3-bet when in position, and 2.5 to 2.7 times when out of position. So, if your opponent was to 3-bet to $20, it would make it around $44 when in position and around $52 when out of position. Against a 4-bet. Pocket Kings is one of only 2 hands that is actually happy to face a 4-bet. Slow playing can sometimes be acceptable in this scenario, but it should only be done very sporadically, as the hand still benefits from fold equity/equity denial. Additionally, shoving ensures that you will avoid an awkward spot post-flop if an ace hits on the flop. Most of the time, however, you should simply 5-bet all in. 3 tips for playing when you have an overpair the flop with King. Tip 1. When in position, almost always bet for value. This includes both single raised pots and 3-bet pots. You want to start extracting value right away to build a bigger pot. Do not slow play without a very good reason. Speaking of good reasons to slow play, tip 2. Consider slowing down on low, connected flops in position and out of position. I'm talking about flops like 7-6-4 or 6-5-4. These boards often smack the pre-flop caller's range, which revolves around small pocket pairs and suited connectors. They have what is called the nut average on these boards, which in a nutshell means that they have more very strong hands, 2-pair or better, in relation to their whole range compared to the other player. Checking to control the size of the pot is often a good strategy on these coordinated flops. You should build your strategy this way because if you bet and get called, navigating many turn cards will be pretty difficult. You may end up stuck in an inflated pot on a dicey board. Tip 3. Proceed past the flop cautiously with your overpair in multiway pots. Your overpair is pretty great on the flop in a multiway pot, but the drop-off in equity from flop to turn is significantly higher when there are 3 or more players still in the mix. It gets even worse when 3 or more players see the turn after calling your flop bet. These multi-way turn spots are dicey because the burden of defense is dispersed to more than one player, which means your opponent should play much tighter. Thus, when they do call, they have significantly stronger ranges than what they'd have in a heads-up pot. 3 tips for playing King-King on dreaded ace-high flops. Tip 1. In 3-bet pots, you should continue being aggressive with a c-bet. I won't sugarcoat it, this spot is not a good one. You're not going to put much money into the pot after flop bearing a king on the turn or the river, but that doesn't mean you should check on the flop. You need to focus more on your whole range, and ace-high flops are extremely advantageous for you as the 3-better, regardless if you're in position or out of position. Remember to bet small, as you want to force your opponent to continue with weaker hands than yours. You are not bluffing. Rather, you are making a thin, range-driven value bet. Tip 2. In 4-bet pots, you should continue being aggressive with a c-bet very similar to 3-bet pots. Ace-high flops massively favour you as the 4-better, both whether you're in or out of position. For this reason, it's best to fire a c-bet with your kings. The upsides of this play include keeping your range uncapped, realizing some equity, because you are very likely to see the turn, getting some value from worse hands, denying some of your opponent's equity. As uncomfortable as it may feel, putting in a very small c-bet is your best course of action on ace-high flops in 4-bet pots. Tip 3. If you encounter resistance after betting, concede the pot. You had a great hand pre-flop, but a terrible flop came. You bet the flop, as the tips above suggested, but now you've settled into a part of the game tree where King-King simply doesn't have much expected value. And that's fine. Don't feel like you need to win every pot just because you had a great hand on the previous street. Sometimes you just gotta give up and move on to the next hand. In my opinion, the hardest part about playing pocket kings is letting the hand go when uncontrollable circumstances don't go your way. Don't get married to your hand is a classic poker saying that holds true even nowadays. Guys, if you like this video, give us a like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next video.